Oh, hi, Nicholas. Hi, Eddie. Welcome to the stream. Today, like I said, we'll just be working with Elementor, with JetEngine, and then seeing how both of them work because I haven't had a chance to play with them really well. So hopefully, we'll get to learn them together. I just got a notification. Okay. Yep. All right. So, yeah. So, see, sounds clear. The image is clear. So, let's get right into it. So, today, I'm sure some of you already know JetEngine released the version 3.5 and it's talking about components. And that has been getting a lot of people excited because lots of content creators have been talking about components that become a buzzword in the whole of WordPress. Everybody talking about components coming to breaks, components coming to the WordPress ecosystem, and we're all trying to figure it out. And JetEngine have come up with their own components, so hopefully we get to see it. And then Elementor as well, they've come up with some new features for the Elementor 3.23. So we'll also get to check that out. So let's now jump right into the screen. If you have any questions, please just leave them in the comments. I'll try my best to look at the comments. And I'll be switching between my face and the screen. So you might not see my face at all because I'm still trying to figure out everything. So bear with me. So now I'll switch over to my screen now. Yeah, Eddie, that's it. The components is actually a nice feature. It's kind of like if you're used to the WordPress ecosystem, they've been talking about the partially synced patterns, and that has been the buzzword right now. Everybody's talking about partially synced patterns coming to WordPress 6.6. So that's similar to what is happening now with JetEngine. So let me go ahead and open JetEngine. So this is just a demo site I created for JetEngine. And so let me go over to the plugins. So you see, we have JetEngine 3.5. That's the latest release, 3.5. And that's where the components comes in. If you are using anything below 3.5, you won't get to see the components. And so let me go over to the settings of JetEngine. And then for JetEngine, one thing I like to do first is under performance, I like to set optimize DOM because I want to get rid of as many divs as possible that are not necessary. So I like to set it to optimize DOM. And then depending on what view I'm using, then I will toggle the other ones off. I like working with a bit of HTML, so I like using the Timber Twig views. So that's what I usually put in here. So Timber and Twig. You don't really need to know how to install it. You can install it either using Composer if you know how to like use the WP CLI or use SSH to log in, and then you can just install Composer, you install Timber and Twig, but they also give you a nice handy feature. So if you don't have it installed, once you just click on the toggle, it will ask you, do you want to install the version 1 or the version 2? I like going for the latest version, so I'll just install version 2, and then you tell you to save the Twix config, and that's it. That's all done for the settings. Then for the modules, for this example, I'm not going to be using any of the modules, so I'll leave all of that blank. So now, once you update to 3.5, previously you only see settings, or in the JetEngine settings, you will only see listings, but now you see listings/components. So that's what we'll be getting here now, listings/components. So once you go to that, listings/components, so depending on, like I said from the beginning with the JetEngine, depending on what you have installed, that is, do you have Elementor or do you have Bricks or do you have just core Gutenberg, you can now toggle any of those, and then you see at the top of your screen, you see the new listing or new components. Listing is for the loop grid if you want to create a query loop or a loop grid, while the components, that is what we're working with today. So I'll click on that, add new component. I'll give it a name, so maybe say test card. Then I'll choose, for the start, I'll just use Timber and Twig, and then create component. This will allow me to write the HTML myself, so let me use that. Close this notification. So this is the HTML. Then I'll click on the, let me just go ahead and, I think on my code pen, if I remember correctly, I have one HTML already created. Let me see. Yeah, I think I created one card. So I'll just use that card as a test. So just copy the non-repeating part of the card. So that's up to the article. Copy that. Then I'll come back to my test card, and then I just put the HTML there. So this is the starting point. You have your HTML there. You can now save it. And then let me preview it. So reload preview. It's just a boring card. But right now, all of the data here is static. So that's the thing. It's like having your templates. You know, usually your templates, by default, most of the text are static. So you can't actually change the text. But let me go ahead and first copy the CSS as well, so that I'll have everything in. So let me just copy all of these. Copy. Come back to the card. Paste it in the CSS. So this is what we have for now. So we have our card. Let me save it. Now we can go ahead and start adding in the dynamic content that the user will be able to now modify, because that's what the whole component is all about. It's about creating a sort of template, but then the user can override some parts that you give the user the opportunity to override. So let me go over to, let's say this H2 now. It just says post title, but now we want to make it dynamic. Or first, let me just even use this on a page so that we can see it on the front end. So let me open a new page. So pages. Then let me just open the home page. Then I'll just drop in. Now you see what it says. If I say test card, it now comes up like a widget within Elementor. So you can just drop it as a standard widget. So this is in combination with the Elements Manager. You can now do some powerful things. So basically, you can disable most of the Elementor widgets and then just allow the components that you yourself created, and maybe the heading widget, the container widget, and some of those other widgets that are standalone, so that your user will not mark up any of the design. So everything will now be fixed by you. So that's the whole idea. So let me go ahead now. You see, sorry, my card is a bit weird. I'll try to show you with Elementor later so that you see how it is easily creating the template with Elementor. Right now, this is the template. So you can now start adding in all the data. So I'll come back to the test card. Let me probably add some media, just so we have some image to work with. So let me cancel this. I'll just say people. Oh yeah. Okay, so I have some data, some images already. So let me just go back. So first, let me just copy the URL of this image. It will be used as my backup image. So close this. Go back to the JetEngine listing components. Then test card. Then now I can now start. Let me just put that image first so that it's there. So put the image, just so we have something. So save and then reload. So now we have something to work with. All of these things will be able to be changed by the user. So these things are not just fixed there. It's just the starting point. Then the user can change it. Oh, it's looking a little bit big. So I'll just create maybe multiple. I'll do like 3 of them. Then come back to the container, make it a grid. I'll set it to be a 3-column grid, 1 row, and then I'll give it a gap. I have core framework installed, so sometimes I'll be using CSS variables. So for example, like here, I can just say var dd grid gap, and then it will give me my regular spacing. So I'll publish that. So as you can see, like what I was saying, right now, by default, because I made everything static, so now the user cannot actually change anything. Everything here is static, it can't be changed. But then we can now override all of these patterns so that the user now has the opportunity to change some of these things. So you see, for now, everything is just like a single card. But now we can go back to our test card. We'll go to the first item, which is the post title. So that one, you now come over to settings at the top. Say new control. I'll add a new control, and I'll call this maybe heading. So the control label will be heading. That will be the name we'll now call into our template. So the control type will just be a text because the heading is usually just a simple text field. And then default value, I'll say maybe post title, so that there's something there. If I close this now, then I'll replace that post title with that variable name. To do that, I'll just say dynamic data. Then I'll say component control value. Then the name is the name that was given there, so that was heading. It's not an image, so just insert this. And I'll save it. Then now let's go back to this page and then refresh. So now you see the post title. Oh, I think I made a mistake. So it's supposed to be the small letters, not the big letters. Let me see. Yeah, I'm supposed to use the name, which is the small letters. So heading without a capital H is a small h. So that's heading. Save that. Now if I go back to Elementor and I refresh it, now you see the whole card is there, and I can change the heading. So I can say maybe this one is the title 1. That'll be title 1. The other ones will still remain as post title. So you now give the user a bit of control. So the user can change just the things that you want him to change. You don't want the user to have the freedom to start changing everything, because I've worked with a lot of different clients, and oftentimes you think that they wouldn't change some things, but in the end, they will change it. So this way, it's like, I'm sure some people are working with Gutenberg. So Gutenberg has something similar, whereby the user, you can now restrict what the user can edit within the widget. So it's like creating a new widget, but then with limited access. So this is for the content. You can change for all of them. So I'll give maybe another example for the image. So I'll go back. Then the image itself, this is the image I used initially. So I'll just cut that. And then I'll go back to the settings. And this time I'll create a new control for my images. So control label will be image, the name image. This time is I'll say single media, and the default value will say something like this one. Yeah, so select, and that's it. So the name is called just image with a small letter. So now I can come back to this image. Because it's an image, I can literally delete all of this, I believe. Then I will insert the dynamic data again, control value, then image, and this is image, yes. Okay, so let me not do this way. So I'm beginning to forget a lot of these things. So yeah, the image itself will be there, just the source value we're trying to put in. So I'll put dynamic data. The control value is the image. Yes, it's image. we just want the URL. The size, let me say I want medium large. Insert that, and I'll save it. Then if I go back, refresh, reload it again. Okay, now this time, we can now change the image itself as well. So the image now has a control. If I choose maybe this image, insert it, see, we get our image, and then we get the title. Well, this image is a bit, let me choose something similar. So yeah, this one. Okay, still weird, but at least you get the picture. So you can actually now, within your CSS, you can give it like an aspect ratio. So the user doesn't have the control to change some of those things. Only the things that you give the user access to change, that's all that the user can change. So that's, you can also add some styling as well. So this is just for the text content. You can add the controls for styles as well. That will be using the CSS variable. So you create a CSS variable and then you add for the style. So that's is how you can get your listing grid. And the beauty of it is, one thing that makes this one powerful is that it doesn't only work with Elementor. So let's say you actually have a page. Let me go to a new page. And this is just a Gutenberg page. I don't know why it's taking time to load, but well, I guess it's my PC for now. So yeah. So now for here, if I put and I look for test, I think that's the name, yeah, test card, it also comes up even within Gutenberg. My system is slow. So now if I open the settings, you can see test card. Let me close this. And then the same way we have within Elementor, you also have the controls here. So you can change your image. You can change the title to say title, maybe title 2. And that will show up here. Update it. And then preview on the front end. And you get exactly the same thing. You get your title 2. So the way you wrote the code is the way to come up. So you can use it in Elementor. You can use it in Gutenberg. You can use it in Bricks. And it will work the same way across all of them. The CSS will be ported in properly. The HTML will be ported in properly. So that's how powerful these components are. So I don't know if you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments so that we can get to see them. But yeah, that's basically about components. And I've been playing around with it a little bit, but I've not had time to fully explore it. But the component feature looks so powerful. It looks like it's going to be a game changer. It will be mimicking the way we have pattern overrides. But now, in this case, rather than just being stuck to using the patterns within Gutenberg, you can use that pattern within Gutenberg or in Elementor or in Bricks or whatever other builder that they start to support. You'll be able to use your components in that builder. It will come up like a separate widget. And that's why I've been enjoying the whole thing. And I've been happy to see them come up with this functionality, because I think the team, I like all these dev teams. They have been doing some things that I know I complain a lot about, like performance and accessibility, but anytime I see what all of these different developers come up with, I'm like, wow, that's something. Like, I wouldn't have thought about it in any way. Oh yeah, that's because I was using the Twig editor. So let me show you with Elementor. I think that should be easier to use. So let me go back. Let me go back to this. So rather than using Twig now, I'll show you how to use it with Elementor. So that will be easier for other people to use. So let's say I create a new listing. So let me switch over. So now I'll create a new component again. And this time, rather than using the Timber, I'll use Elementor. So I'll say Elementor component. I'll create the component. So it's the same principle. Go ahead and I'll create the flex box. I'll put maybe the row or column. Then I'll go ahead and drop in an image widget. Then maybe a heading widget. Then I'll drop in maybe another text editor widget, just random widgets right now. So these 3 widgets, then let me just publish it. Make it look somehow decent. So just add some random things in there. So the heading, just a post title or yeah. Just to make it look nice at least. So 100%. Make this a full width. And maybe I'll give it a width of just so people can see it. Okay, yeah. So now that you have all of these, you publish it. And I believe if you go to the settings, yeah, then you can now come to the control and then you define the control settings. So you can start with the first one. This will be a text control. Let's say maybe that'll be the title. So title, give it the same name, title. It's a text field and the default value will be post title. The second one, maybe for the image, the control label will be image. The name too will be image. This is a single media. I'll give it this first one. Okay. Then for the paragraph text, same thing. I'll just say description. The name will be description. Let me make it a full label. Description. Okay. And it should be a text area field so that the user can add multiple paragraphs. So text area. And that's it. So for those 3 now, I will now just have to import them into the components using dynamic tags. So I'll come back for the image. I'll go to the content. Then I'll use the dynamic tags. And you see control. So that's component control image. Then the problem is you have to always give it the name yourself. It doesn't give you a drop-down list to show what the name is. So you have to remember what the name you put in there. So I think it was image. Then, oh, wasn't it? Let's see. Component settings, controls, image. Yeah, it should be image. Okay. Then the title, same thing, dynamic tags. So this time you'll be using, rather than writing the text yourself, you'll be using dynamic tags, but you still have to write it. That's a bit of a bummer, but well. So where was it? Okay, control value. Then the control name, I think this was title. The final one was dynamic tags again, JetEngine, then the control value, and this was DSC, I believe. Yeah. Publish it. I believe it's working. So let me go ahead and test it on the front end. So I'll come to, let's see, which page did I use? Okay, I think I used this page. So let me go ahead and edit the page with Elementor. Okay. Pages. Then what page was I working with? I think it was the home page. So let me open that. So this time, I'll now try the other card. So let me, the plus icon. I think the card was called, let me go ahead and check for it. Okay, it was called Elementor component. So that's it. Oh yeah, so it works here. It didn't just work in the backend. I'm not sure what happened. I will have to go and check it out myself again later. But yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, that's true. I think I didn't use quickly a lot, but I heard quickly was having something similar like this with their components. So you can choose what values you want to change and then what values that you don't want the user to change. So yeah, I think it should be similar to what quickly was doing. And I think even the Gutenbergs is something similar to what Gutenbergs gives you as well. So let's see. Now you can change the title to, let's see, test. Then the image, you can change it. And one thing that I liked was that when I was testing it out, I tested it out also using the component within a loop grid, and it worked. So that makes it easy to, you can create maybe a set of components, and then the user can just pick one of those components, drop it into their loop grid template, and then that's automatically generates the template, and they can easily just chop and change. So delete one component, put another one, and then just have to change the title. So that might be something powerful where you can now create multiple templates or components and then save them as maybe a JSON file or somewhere that you can now reuse on your different client sites. So it will be like your library of patterns or something like that, with the ability for the user to change them. So that's one thing that I was happy to see, because I actually even tried it in Bricks as well. It was the same thing, the same procedure. You add in all your content, then you go ahead and then add in the components, the control values, and then everything just works well. So you can put it into your query loop and then query loop that block. So the user can now change just the values you allow the user to change. For example, let me go back to this one. I'm not sure why it's not showing. Maybe if I have to refresh the page, but you can go to the settings, then the style controls. You can also create different style controls for each of them. So maybe for the title, you want the user to be able to change the colors and maybe the font size. You can now add that component control value, and the user will be able to, oh yeah, I never changed. I keep forgetting. Yeah. So I forgot to switch the screen. So yeah, basically here under the, I'm not sure why it's not showing here, but under the settings, you can see the style control. Then you can add in different style controls that you want. So you just give it a name, the label, and then you use that dynamic tag within that style. So maybe for the background color, you now give it a color value. For maybe the box shadow, you give it a color value and things like that. Then the user can easily change the value of maybe the color or other things, but the user will not have access to change other values, just the values that you allow the user to change. So that's one thing that I really liked. Exactly, yes. What Nicholas was just saying, the one thing that is good with this component is that because the idea of WordPress, I guess, is to give users freedom. So in this way, you're giving users a bit of freedom, but not to the extent that they will break your website or break your design. So the design will be fixed. All the user has access to is to change only the parameters that you give him, even though it looks like he's the one building the websites because he's the one dropping in the widgets into the page, but you are the one who have defined all of the styles, so the colors, so the user doesn't go ahead and break all of the color scheme or something like that. So you can define all the colors and then lock it up so the user cannot change the colors. And you can define the font size, you can define so many other things, and the user doesn't have the access to change those controls that you have. And that's one of the powerful things. And yeah, then I was checking their, let me go ahead and look at the JetEngine changelog. I believe they have some other extra things that they included into this version. And one of them was that, so the component functionality is the first one. So you can create your components using either Twig, or if you are more of a visual person, you create it using like Bricks or Elementor or the block editor. And then you can now use that component within any other builder. So that is good. Then the other one is that it allows you to store your default post metadata into a custom database. I'm sure Nicholas and others will have a better understanding about this, but basically almost all your data that you put, like all your meta fields, they are all stored under an array within the post meta in the database. But this time, you can now extract your JetEngine meta fields for your posts only. For right now, it only works with posts, and then you can put that into a separate block in the database. So I guess that will now help with like searching or like other kind of database performance improvements. Although I know Matt, he keeps saying that he prefers everything to be inside the post meta because it is easier to do a retrieval and to use it on different custom post types, but it also has an impact on performance. So I think that I think this is a good idea. So you can now separate your meta from your JetEngine post meta into a separate database, a separate column within the database. The same thing happens with your repeater fields as well. You can separate it so it doesn't, each of the values is a separate column within your meta field. So let me go ahead and show it. So I think this is JetEngine. Yeah, Matt is kind of like leadership in every the leadership of every company is similar. The leaders, like when I was working with one company, the leaders, they just have the vision, they just say whatever they like, but they're not the ones working on the ground, so they don't really see the suffering of people on the ground. Like, let me not say too much political things, but like the prime ministers of some country, he keeps talking about how the poor people, how he's helping the poor, but he came from a very rich home. He's a billionaire. So how does he really know the suffering of the poor people? So sometimes we get that notion that we know what people are facing. It's like before, when I was not working with a lot of clients, because most of my clients, I was the one controlling the website for them. So I was having the freedom to do a lot of things. But then I started working with some clients that want to control their website, but they don't have that much knowledge. So they kept breaking a lot of things down. That's when I started to realize that, okay, some of these builders that are more visual, they are better to use because I would design something so beautiful in my head, but then the moment I give it to the client, he just literally, he doesn't understand anything I did there because there's lots of custom code here and there, just hidden within. I understand the custom code, but when he looks at the code, he's like, what is all of this? And then he just goes ahead and deletes everything I wrote because he cannot see it visually. He wants to see the visual representation. But unfortunately, I am always writing things in code, so all you're seeing is just code. Only when you go on the front end that you see the output. So that's caused a lot of problems. That's why I started to realize, okay, I shouldn't say too much to clients because I have that idealistic idea in my mind. I feel everything should be in a perfect world, but not everybody has that perfect world scenario with their clients. So sometimes we have to make some compromise and some adjustments. And even with like, so I don't blame some page builders for doing something that they do because it is helping some clients out. So although when I do my YouTube videos, I will still complain and make remarks, but I do understand what a lot of the all of them are going through. Maybe they can be kind of like a compromise or like a middle in between, in the middle, where we are getting the perfect code. Because my hope and my dream is that we'll be able to get the perfect like defaults. So like the page builder will create a perfect default, but then give users the ability to change it when they need to change it. So not where everybody is just stuck with like a pattern and they can't change it, or when everything is so complicated that when the user looks at the screen, he gets so confused that he wants to run away. Those are two extremes. Like the day I opened Oxygen Builder, sorry to say, but it just looked too complex for me, so I couldn't handle it. But then it gives you so much functionality, which I understand, but it just looked so complicated to me that I couldn't understand. And that is the trouble that a lot of people face. That yes, we want them to create the perfect website, but not everybody has that what should I call it? The the knowledge or the ability to use those complex tools that you have. Some people just want something so simple that they can work with and they get their job done. So just tell them, please press the left button and then press down, and that's all they need to do. They don't want you to start telling them, okay, change the HTML to H2. They want you that, if it's possible, that's maybe one day we'll get with AI, where when we're building a website, it will automatically choose the heading level for us and maybe the image alt text, the perfect image alt text. But I think for now we don't have that level, so we'll have to keep suffering with the real world that has with all of its flaws. But yeah, enough of that. Let me go ahead and we'll look at the second thing, which is Elementor itself, to see some of the updates that Elementor have come up with. But if you do have any other questions that you want to ask about JetEngine, please leave it in the comments. I will respond once I see it. But now let's go ahead and see Elementor. So let me try and pull up an Elementor website. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, so let me open GitHub to see the update. Yeah, so 3.23, I believe, yeah. Then, okay. Okay, so that's it. Yeah, so let me go back. Issues, the beta release, and then look at it. Yeah. So let me switch it over. Yeah, we can never win with with page builders. We can't win. If you make it too simple, then some devs will complain. If you make it too complex, some devs will complain. So no matter what decisions you make, there will always be somebody who is not happy, basically, and there will always be pushback. But I guess that's life. You always just have to find out from the users. So maybe take a kind of broad user feedback and then use that to update your system and then come up with a good page builder. Because no matter what you do, there will always be somebody who complains. Like even with bricks, there's a lot of people who will complain about bricks. There's a lot of loud voices that say bricks is the best, but there are also those small voices that say bricks is the worst and things like that. So no matter how easy you make it for the user, I think probably marketing matters. Like the way you market it will go a long way. Because like the video that's Jamie said, where he was comparing Wix with WordPress and why Wix is more successful than WordPress in some instances. and that's just down to marketing. Like how the the Wix team are marketing Wix is a bit better than how WordPress is marketing it, because WordPress, first, there's always this internal fight between page builders and the Gutenberg team. Even among page builder users, there's a fight. There's always a fight. there's there's no like unity among, even though we go to WordCamp and try to be united, the moment we leave the WordCamp, everybody is fighting again, saying, oh, Bricks is not this, Elementor is not that, this is the best page builder, that is the worst page builder. But I think, like, when we talk about accessibility in general, that is the idea that somebody was speaking to me about recently. And he was saying that accessibility is about giving the people what they need. It's not about you, it's not about your client, but it's about the users themselves. What is the thing that the users need? So you have to have that emotion, that empathy to say, okay, this is what my users need. And how do you know what your users need if you don't ask your users? You are like, you're just stuck, because everybody has this beautiful idea in their head that is so ideal. Like, okay, this is how I envision the whole world to be. But we should have that understanding that every user is different. So two things are very important. One, you should ask your users for what they need. And two, you should create a default. So create something that you know that, okay, works for the most people, and then give them the flexibility to change that default whenever they need it. So that's accessibility in a nutshell. So if you think about it in terms of like colors, you have what they say the prefers color scheme, so that you can change your colors from dark mode to light mode. So first you give the users a standard, a default. Okay, the default is light mode for this website. But then you then say, okay, users, you can change it if you want to a dark mode. So maybe your eyes are not good enough to see light mode, but they are sensitive because they are sensitive to light. Then they can see the dark mode and work with it. In terms of fonts, you create a default font, so say 18 pixel or maybe 1 rem or whatever. But then you have to use it in relative units so that the user can now go to his browser settings and change that default to maybe 200%, so that 1 rem now becomes 32 pixels. For example, like my website, when I use my browser, my system is set to about 150% or 175%, depending on the day, because my eyes change depending on some days. They are good, some days they are very bad, that it becomes very blurry. And then sometimes I start to rely on a bit of screen readers. So that's why if you really ask your users, then you start to realize what they need, not just what you need, because you can see your colors. Like someone was telling me about my website, the colors, they are, I need to change my website basically. So I'm trying to update it. So because you might be seeing colors and being like, oh yeah, these colors are beautiful for my, so like, for example, see this link. If I hover over the link, there is no like hover style, there's no underline. And so some people who are like colorblind will not even know anything changed, because sometimes you see some, like this one now with the hover state is just a lighter color of the same color. The good thing is that, okay, yes, we have the hover icon that changes, but then for some users who are colorblind, they will not even see the difference between what you changed right now. The two colors will look very similar. There will not be any difference unless you do something else. That's why you say you should add some form of other animations. But yeah, I think I'm veering off the path now. But basically, what every page builder and every like web designer should think about is, first, try to create a default, then try to oh yeah. Oh, oh yeah. Thanks for telling me. I'm still getting used to this. Oh yeah. So, so like I was saying about like this Gutenberg. Oh, sorry, the GitHub repository. If you hover over some of their links, like over the search bar, there is no kind of hover style. It's just a change in the color, so it just goes from uh, from just a little change in color. For you as a visual user, you are very clear at seeing these colors are changing, and you're like, yeah, it's perfect. But for someone who is not that visual, who's like he has color blindness, he might see the two colors as literally the same thing. So it's like there's nothing that changed. So that's why they always advise you that do not rely on colors. Change the it should be like two things. Usually try to make sure when there's any change, there should be two things happening at the same time. So when those two things happen, if the user cannot see one, he can at least feel the other one. So usually you now put an underline so that the user knows that, okay, I'm hovering over a link and then there is an underline. So there's always two things happening. So someone who cannot see colors will see the underline. If he cannot see the underline, then maybe he can see colors or things like that. So you just always make sure that there is always multiple things happening at the same time to give the user the choice. So it's all about choices. So in terms of colors, make sure that there are choices that they can change from light mode to dark mode. In terms of font size, make sure that the user has the choice to change his font size based on his browser settings. In terms of animations as well, make sure that the user has the choice to stop the animation, because some people get dizzy when they see things that are constantly moving. Because I remember during one of the speed build challenges, or was it the other challenge? But one of these website design challenge, somebody put a marquee at the bottom of his screen, and one of the users said she couldn't watch the stream because that marquee just kept distracting her, that she couldn't concentrate on the what was the actual thing that was going on, because it's just that constant motion that just keeps moving. It gives some people that dizzy feeling, and then they get very dizzy. So always try to give people users choices. So in terms of even the page builder, I always subscribe that in an ideal world, what should happen is that, like let's say Elementor, they should have the UI version that allows users to do things using the UI, but then they should also have that the other way whereby the user can now have more control. So that you give the users something default to work with that is easy to use. And then if the user wants more control, then give them more control for them to change whatever they want to change. But yeah, that's it. Let me switch over back to Elementor now. So now with Elementor, they've come up with these 4 new things. The first one is the search widget, then the floating buttons, then the link in bio, and then they've made some improvements to the nested elements. So the first thing I will talk about is below, which is the menu widget, because that's what I've been focusing more on. So let me go over to under the screen. So let me open a page. If I use the home page, edit the home page. So yeah, so I created this menu within the header. So let me go to the header. So here we have a menu, and then we have, this is using the new menu widget. So let me open it up. That's the menu widget. So with this menu widget, they've made some modifications to the menu widget. One of the things they've done is now we have the access to the name itself. So the name now, we can give it a name of primary or menu or whatever name that we need to put there. So let me publish it, and then I'll show you on the front end. But before we go into that, so whenever you're editing your header, for now, until Elementor changes it, you have to go over to your settings for your header settings, then come over to the HTML tag and make sure you set it to header, because every page should have a structure. There should be the header. It should actually have the tag of header rather than having a tag of div, which is the default, the main content area of the body, and then the footer. You also go to the same thing, go to the footer, go to settings. Oh, yeah. Hi, Imran. Thanks for joining in. I'm happy to see you here. So, yeah, So basically, this is what we have to do here is go over to settings if you're on the header, then go to your HTML tag, change the header, make sure it's header. If you go to your footer, the same thing, you go to the settings and then go to the HTML tag and change that to footer. Make sure you do that for your header and your footer. Then for this now, let me show you on the front end. So go to the preview and we'll see what changes they made in the front end. So let me right click and inspect it. So let's make sure it's full page. Yeah. So what Elementor have done now is this is how the whole structure is now. And they've previously, we have, this is, let me start from the beginning. So this is the navigation. It has the tag of nav. Then this is the button. This button is your mobile menu trigger. So when it switches to mobile, this is the button that controls the menu to go open and close. Then we have the list items. So for each of the items, there should be a list. And then because the reason why we're putting it in a list is one is for screen reader users. So the moment a screen reader user comes up to your nav, he will hear that this is the, like, what we're going to hear is list with 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 items. And then it will announce the first item. So when the user hears that, he knows that, okay, he has 7 items to go on, or 6 items to go on your page before moving on to the next thing. And if you want to skip it, he can actually skip the entire list because they have a shortcut to switch between headings, a shortcut to switch between links. They have a shortcut to switch between list items and between lists themselves. So there are so many shortcuts that have been given to screen reader users. So when you use the right HTML tag for them, then they can quickly navigate through your page in seconds. Like, they can even go faster than a visual user. If your page is structured properly, they use a key called the D key to switch between landmark regions. Let me just close this for now. So we have the D key will switch from the header landmark to the navigation landmark. Then if you press the key again, it goes to the main content area. Then when you press the D key again, it goes to maybe your aside, and then it will just keep going through the big structures that you created. Then they have another key, which is the H key for switching between headings. So they can go between from your, as long as your heading is structured properly, they can go between all your headings using the H key. But if for whatever reason, they don't want to go from your H1 to the next, to the H2, they can use the number keys. So if they go with the number 2, they can literally switch between your heading 2 levels. So that's why we always try to encourage people to use the right heading levels for your pages. So the H1 should be like your page title. Then for each of your sections, the section title should be like an H2. Then within the section, there should be H3s. The reason why you're doing that is that when a screen reader user is moving through, so he'll press the number 1 key, he goes to the heading 1, then that gives him the idea of what that page is all about. Then he'll press the number 2 key to go to the first subheading under the page, and then he reads that, then he knows, okay, is this something I want to explore further? So if, let's say, the number 2 heading is, let me just go to a random page, maybe WebAIM. So let me open their blog articles. Or let me open something easier. So MDN docs. And open one of their. So using this page as an example, if you go ahead and inspect the code, you will see that first, this whole top section is regarded as the header. Then this will be the nav, because the screen reader user can use either the H key to move through heading levels or the D key to move through the structure. So basically, when they press the D key, they will go to the title of your logo. They will press the D key again, it goes straight to this navigation. they press the D key again, usually it will now go into the main area. Then they press it again. Sometimes it will now move to the title or the list items for your table of content. So literally they can switch through your entire page within seconds if your page is structured properly. But when you have no landmark region for your header, no landmark region for your title, so everything just gets disrupted, and then they are like trying to find their way around your page and they get confused. So that's why you hear me complain a lot. That's because when I've used screen readers in some instances using my phone, sometimes I use TalkBack, I start to get disoriented because you hear H2, then next thing you hear is H5, and then you hear H3 again, then you hear the paragraph text, and you're like, does the H2 actually follow the H3, or what is happening here? And then you get lost. But when you now follow the structure, first, your search engines will be able to follow your page. The screen reader users will be able to follow your page. Keyboard users will be able to follow your page. If you follow the structure and then you just provide the correct defaults, then everybody will be able to follow your page. And that's it about accessibility. So going back to the nav, let me right click and inspect it. So what we have now is the nav. From the nav, we now have the button that triggers the mobile menu. Then we now have the list of the menu items. So it tells us the list. Then within that list, we have the A tag, which controls the top level menu item. After that, we have the button, which triggers the drop down. So you see everything is following in order in the HTML. That is the one thing we want, because if it's not following in proper order in the HTML, it tends to have some issues with some assistive technology. So maybe like a screen reader user, or maybe somebody who is using the touch pen or something, or somebody who is using the voice control, they will have some issues trying to move to the next item. So that's why you should make sure that your HTML is following the right order. So you see the A tag, then we have the button tag that triggers the button to open and close. Next, we should have the drop down content. So button, then we have the drop down content that is beneath it. So, and then all of our elements are there. So basically the HTML is following in the right order. So from the link item, oh, bye Eddie. I'll see you in your chats. Basically, I'll see you in your Facebook group. Thanks for watching. I'm so happy you were able to watch some of the stream. Yes, please hit the like button. That will help me out, and it will make me feel like, yes, this stream was worth it. So yeah, that's it. So with the content, everything is now in order, and that is what we want. So we want the title from the link. So basically, you want the flow to go from the link to the button that triggers the link, and then into the menu item. That's what we want for our HTML. And we also want, let me inspect it again. You see on the nav, it has the name, this area label primary. So what happens is that when a screen reader user lands on your navigation, what the screen reader user will hear is primary, then it will hear the role, which is navigation. So you say primary navigation, and then you say list with 7 items. So the user knows that, okay, this is a navigation. It is the primary navigation of your page. So it's not the table of contents or any other navigation. It is the primary navigation. And then it is a list with 7 items, and so on and so forth. So everything just flows well. And that's one thing I'm so happy that Elementor are able to add into their widgets. Then the next thing is the next widget. Okay, let me read. So, okay, I think that's a good question, Nick. When he says, so basically what we have when we have this kind of menu, what we expect to have with the menu is that on hover, the drop down should open, but on click, it should click the top level item. We don't expect click should open the drop down unless there is no link at the top. So it's a bit, sometimes it can be a bit confusing. But basically, what we want from the menu widget is that on hover, it should open the drop down content. Then we can easily know that there's a drop down content, because sometimes some people will not know this icon is good for some people, but not everybody knows that the icon means that there's a drop down content. So that's why we now provide this hover state. So immediately you hover over it, it immediately drops down the content. Otherwise, the user will just immediately go ahead and click that link, thinking it's just a top level link. So once you have that hover state, then the user knows that there's a drop down. Then the other thing that some users expect the link to be clickable. Some people say it varies. Some people say the top level items should not actually be links, that you should have the link as the first item within the drop down itself. Others say you can add a link to your top level item. So there's usually a debate with all of these things. But I guess we should just stick to one and then use that as it go along. But yeah, so on hover, it should open the drop down content, while on click, it should now open the top level item, basically. Then with your keys as well, if you use the keyboard to navigate or press the tab key again. So now you see there is a focused outline that helps us to know that, okay, we are on the product link. Then if you press the tab key again, you now see, okay, we're on the drop down item. So the two things that you need to know with links and buttons is that for links, only the enter key actually triggers a link. The spacebar key does not trigger a link. Whereas for a button, both the spacebar key and the enter key should be able to trigger a button. So let's say if you press the spacebar key here, it triggers the button. If you press it again, it closes the button. If you press the enter key, the same thing should open and close. So that is the concept. The other thing that some people tell us is that when you press, once it's hovered open, if I click on the button itself, not the link, if I click on the button, it should close the menu, which is what happens with Elementor. And that is a good thing, because sometimes we want to actually have that action that when we click, it should open and close the drop-down content as well. So that is actually a good thing that Elementor added. The only problem that we have for now is that when we press the spacebar key on the top level link, it has an issue, because when you press it now, it does both actions. It basically opens the drop down, and if you see at the top, it also adds the link. So it triggers the link and opens the drop down, which should not happen. We should not even do any of those two things. So we should ideally have that when we press the space bar on the top level link, nothing should happen. It should just I think usually it will just scroll your screen up a little bit. That's what should happen. Let me use so this link, when you press the space bar key, nothing happens, because that is ideally what should happen. It should only maybe move the screen up a bit, but it should not have any impact on triggering the link. So that's the only thing that I think Elementor still needs to fix, that spacebar and enter key interaction. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. So now let's go back and let me see. The next thing that was added was the search widget. So let me close all of these. So we just test the search widget now. Let me open the page, edit the page, and then just drop the search widget. So now we get this extra functionality. Before it was a bit different, but now we get all of this functionality. I think you have to activate something in the, let me remember. If you go over to Elementor settings and then features, I think you will see some new features added in Elementor 3.23. Most of them are in beta, so some people may not want to activate them on their live sites because it's still in beta, but I think it is good enough to use, but you should tread with caution. So we have the link in bio, we have the floating buttons, and then we have the new search. So once you activate this, it will not automatically change your old menu. I think you have to go ahead and add in a new search widget for it to work. But once you drop in a new search widget, it comes up with this new layout. And then with this layout now, the things you can now do is you can add autocomplete. Then you also see the results. You can now display live results. That's the two things that were added. So now you can put a live result. And then you have to create a new template. Oh, I forgot to create a template. So I don't know. There's no button to add a new template. So I will have to go ahead and create a new template. So let me open a page. I don't know if that's a bug, but usually it should have the option to add a new template. So let me go ahead to the dashboard. Then let me go to templates. I think I'll go to theme builder or maybe save templates. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to add a loop grid template. Okay, so that's, I can use the theme builder. Then I'll create a loop item. Let me create one quickly. Let me just close this. I'll create one from scratch. I'll just create the, oh, I forgot. I should have opened a new page. So go back again to the Elementor settings. Oh, sorry, templates. Then theme builder. Okay, so it's a bug. Then I'll go over to the loop item and then edit the item. So I always like to rename my templates. So I'll go to the settings and change the loop, the name. So I'll give it maybe search template, so that whenever I see it, I know what it is. So yes, the live will be available to watch later. I will make sure it's there. And yeah, I will soon be off too. So thanks for watching, Nicholas. Thanks for watching, Eddie. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me just create the template, and I'll always be in the Elementor group bugging people out. So you just bear with me when I go with my usual way of talking. So please bear with me. Sometimes I say those things and then I realize that, oh wow, I shouldn't have said this thing this way. But at that moment, my head is just thinking about so many things, and then I say some things. But yeah, let's keep going. So yeah, here's the template. Let me go ahead and just drop in some simple items. I'll drop in the featured image. Maybe I'll make it, then I'll drop in a container again. That is full width. That's another thing that Elementor added now, that when you add a container within a container, it immediately makes it to be full width. So that's something nice. So go over to the container, then make it, let me see, make it to be row, then, or let me make it with the grid. So grid, I'll make full width, then I'll set it to be, rather than just 3FR, let me make it 1FR, 2FR. Okay. Yeah, then I'll go ahead and, this is the featured image. So let me just make the settings, then query, because I think I have posts, preview. I don't actually have a proper post, but I think I have an event. So apply, preview. Oh, I don't have a featured image. Let me just go ahead and delete it. I'll just use a simple just to show the values. So I'll go ahead and click on the plus icon and then just add the post title. Make it probably, since it's just going to be title only, I'll just put a p tag. So only for the title, and then I'll just give it a link, or maybe even a span tag, because it's going to be a link, and then link it to the post title or post URL. Then that's it. So publish it, just to show something simple. Then maybe I'll give it, so go back to the template. Now I can search for my template, which is called search template, and then we have our template. So now when I publish it and go to the front end, we now have our search. I think I need to make sure it's searching the right thing. So under query, make sure it's searching for, rather than all, you can now choose where you want it to search from. So in this case, I want it to search only the events, not just any other post type, but just the events, because that's the only way I have posts in. So publish. So that's another beautiful thing that a lot of people were complaining about in previous versions. They didn't have access to changing the source of the query, but now you can change the source of your query to your events or your custom post type. Then I'll go over to the test and now say, let me look for one of the events. Let's go to, let me make sure I pick a correct event. So under events, so just say Afro. So let me search for Afro. I see it picks up that item. If I search for, let's say, Barcelona, so BAR, it picks up Barcelona, and I can now click on it. So that's how you can create a search. You can make your search bar as beautiful as you want. You can put an image. You can make it just the title. You can do so many things. The only trouble is that right now, it is still having, in the beta, this beta version, it's not fully following the standard for the search yet, because ideally, if I press the arrow keys, I should be able to now get into this link. Let me show you an example. I'll use yahoo.com. It's very similar to this Yahoo. If you see, let me search for Kate, and I now press the down arrow key. See, I can now get access into the list. But for now, it's not like that. But I believe soon they will fix it, because they're still working on it. It's still in the beta version. But that's what should happen. Ideally, when you enter the search and type in your search item, it should bring out this list of links. Then the arrow keys, up and down arrow keys, is what you use to navigate into that list. Then when you press the tab key, it should go to the close button. If you press the tab key again, it should go to your search button. So that's how it should work. So it's the arrow keys that get access into the search results, whereas the tab key goes to the close button first, then to the search button if necessary, and so on and so forth. So that's one thing that Elementor needs to take into account, that it should be arrow keys to navigate here, and then tab key to navigate from the close button to the search button. So hopefully Elementor will work on that. Then let's look at the next cool feature, which I believe is the floating buttons. For that one, you'd need to create a new template. So I'll go back again, Elementor Playground, then templates, and then there is a new template called floating buttons. So you click on that. Then I'll click add new floating button. Then I'll just choose one of the options given to me. There are so many options. I remember one of my videos, I showed how to do something similar to this, but now they have given you all of these without you having to do anything. So let me go ahead and click this, insert it. And now let me reduce the screen. Yeah. So we get our floating button. So we can change the template here. You can change some of the icons. So the icon at the bottom, you can change it. You can change the top bar. So change the image. It's kind of like the components I showed you in JetEngine. That's almost similar to this. They give you just a set of controls that you can use to change all of the default template. They already created the template for you. Then they give you the options to, you can change some of the values. There are some values that you can't change for now. I think they will give you option to change those later. But for now, the design, I think it's set. You can only change some things like colors and the message that happens. Let me see. Yeah, you can change the colors. Let's say I want it to be some weird green. That's for the chat button, which is the bottom there. Or just something darker. And you get that. I can even use the dynamic shortcodes and then just use one of my core variables. So let me see. The primary color. And then I get my primary color. That's something handy. Then I can go ahead and add the condition to say entire site, or just make it to be specific to a page. So in this case, I'll say maybe the only on the home page, because you don't really want your chat button showing up on some pages. But like the home page is one of the important pages that people like to put the chat button, so that users can just quickly see that button and then they want to go ahead and chat with you. So, well, in this case, let me just say the entire site. So entire site, save and close. Then let me go back to the content and see what we can actually change. So under the contacts button, let's see the WhatsApp. Can we change anything? Okay, we can use a link. So, okay, I can add in different links to the WhatsApp button. So that's good. So that I guess I can use some dynamic URL. Let's see. Although the one thing that I always like is that dynamic shortcodes works everywhere. So the moment I see that I'm stuck anywhere, I can just use dynamic shortcodes and I get whatever I want. But yeah, I think we can add in our numbers, but can we change to something? So we can't use anything specific. We have to use one of the ones that are given to us by Elementor. You can't add a custom link. Okay, so that's something you can't actually even change the text. So, okay. So I guess that's the limitation with the floating button. But I guess in a way it's normal. You don't really expect so many different informations here. You just need the basic information to get people to start chatting with you. You don't actually need to add so many extra things here. So I guess I understand, but it would still be nice if Elementor could add the option to change. Maybe you want to change the icon to something different. We don't want this icon, we want some other custom SVG or something like that. It would be nice to have that option. Or maybe it will be somewhere in the future version, which I'm not seeing yet, but that's one. So yeah, then we can now go ahead to the front end and see how it looks on the front end. So let me go back to the home page, just preview this. And yeah, we get our floating button on all our pages. So that's something quite nice. It saves you from using so many of these chat plugins, because those chat plugins, really, what are they doing? They're just sending you to the WhatsApp to start the conversation. So right now, I believe if using some of the dynamic tags, you can now add the message to the WhatsApp URL, and then once the person clicks on that WhatsApp, it takes the person to WhatsApp with the default message that you've set up and things like that. So that's really cool. The other thing that they added is the link in bio, which I think I need to even create one for myself soon, because I don't actually have one of these link in bios, which you see on social media platforms where you see the name and then they just put /socials or something like that, or it puts Linktree and it gives you that link in bio kind of design. Now you can do it all from Elementor. So I'll go to the playground. And what I think would be the ideal way to do it is to create either a separate page. So let me create one new page now, or you use one of those Elementor's, what's it called? The one for landing pages, yes. You one of those Elementor landing pages. I believe that's the best use case for this link in bio. So let me just try link in bio. I'll publish it. And then I'll edit on the Elementor. Then I'll go ahead and just drop in the link in bio widget. So let's see. Okay, it doesn't show up here. We have to go ahead and search for it. So those are the widgets. So we have the minimalistic design. We have the classic, the links. So let's see one of them. So minimalist. Okay. So what we don't do is the best use case is that you now come over to your settings, because you don't really want to have a header and footer in your link in bio page. You just want the user to just have access to the link in bio content. So what you now do is go over, then you change the default for the page to Elementor canvas. Then make sure this page just fills the entire page. So I'll just do a full width, because it's supposed to just fill the entire page. Yeah, and that's it. So we have the access to change the image. So I'll just put this image. Then change the title. So maybe, yeah, the title, that can be a H1 because literally there's nothing else on the page. Then this can be a paragraph text, just a web. Did I type spell it well? Okay, so that's it. Oh yeah. So then all of that, so I can now publish this. So if I used it in a landing page, that's link, or I can just call this page socials, so that when it now be DDELE, so let me go ahead and see it on the front end, how it looks like. So yeah, this is what we get on the front end. The user will now have links to all of our different pages or different social media items. So we have these social media items or different pages on our website. Yeah, this is actually quite cool. I think I'll be using one of these for my own page soon, so that I can have a link in bio for my page. But yeah, that's it for the Elementor version. In a future stream, I will show some other things, but I think that's it for now. If you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments. We can go ahead and answer those questions before we shoot off. But I want to say thank you to everybody who has come over to the live stream to join us. I'm happy to have all of you on the live stream, and hopefully I'll get to do even more live streams. So if you have any suggestions or feedback, please, you can either send me an email or reach out to me, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, whatever the name is now, and then we'll be able to figure it out and show what other improvements I can make to the live stream and what kind of topics you want me to see on the live stream. So yeah, okay. So we'll be ending the live stream now. So I want to say thank you to everybody for joining in, and I'll see you in the next one.